Yesterday, we spoke about the Montreal Canadiens goaltending situation and how a Vasily Demchenko signing is good, but it doesn't provide the insurance that many Habs fans would want. Well, turns out another team that I cheer for also is looking for some goaltending insurance and some actual stability on the back end. Because the Detroit Red Wings and the way they're shaped up so far, it's not really something that a lot of people can look at and say is absolutely insured. Right now, the Detroit Red Wings have Jimmy Howard, who is going to be a UFA, and they have Jonathan Bernier. And with this in mind, there's an idea that I've been seeing people talk about, from the media to people on Twitter to Reddit and forum posts, all that stuff. You know, the whole package of people talking about things regarding the idea of a new goaltender for the Detroit Red Wings. Well, Helene St. James of the Detroit Free Press published this article a few days ago on their website. The Detroit Red Wings need a new goalie. Here are some of the top candidates. And in this article, it goes over the current status quo, talking about Jonathan Bernier and how he was honestly not terrible. But the fact that Jimmy Howard is over here, he signed his one-year extension last season, and now that's coming to an end, and Jimmy Howard is coming off of a 4.20 goals against average and an .882 save percentage. Yeah, the likelihood of bringing back Jimmy Howard doesn't really seem too high, in my opinion. And with that in mind, it really opens the floor up to what can be done to resolve this idea, to give the Red Wings two legitimate NHL caliber goaltenders, a backup and a starter. Because one thing's for sure, Philip Larson, he's not gonna be there just yet, and Victor Brattstrom, the goalie prospect that they signed yesterday, is definitely not going to be there either. This team needs the same amount of insurance if they actually want to prove that they can play and they can remain competitive in the National Hockey League. So what Helene St. James does on this article is go over a few of the potential free agents that the Red Wings could probably use in some capacity if they decided to sign them. The first one right here is Cam Talbot, a man who has played all around the province of Alberta for Edmonton and for Calgary, and who is set to becoming a free agent with a $2.75 million cap hit from the last year. He's a big guy, and he's a capable guy, getting a .263 goals against average and a .919 save percentage. Not terrible, not amazing. But obviously, as a guy who could become a free agent and who has been amazing in the past, there certainly could be some potential to untap here. The next name that is mentioned is Jaroslav Halak, 34 years old, a Boston Bruins backup goalie who had a similar set of numbers, the exact same save percentage as Cam Talbot, and a .239 goals against average instead. His cap hit was exactly the same as Cam Talbot's at $2.75 million per year, and Halak is known mostly as a very, very experienced NHL goalie, a veteran guy with a ton of games under his belt. The next name over here is the guy that we talked about yesterday in regards to the Montreal Canadiens. It's Anton Khudobin, a .930 save percentage, a 2.22 goals against average, 33 years old, a $2.5 million cap hit, and a legitimately good case for being one of the better backup goalies in the entire league. Khudobin's a guy who, if he came to Detroit, he honestly could probably fight for that starter spot. And if you're the Red Wings, that's not necessarily something that I could say is a bad thing. Obviously, if you can improve your goaltending situation, you want to do that. But to me, Khudobin could be a little bit of the big catch amongst this group of players, because he's probably the guy who is the best at a backup role and who could potentially challenge for a starter spot, depending on the team that wants to take him. Next up, it's Thomas Greiss, a 34-year-old New York Islanders goaltender. A .913 save percentage and a .274 goals against average last season. His contract's actually the most expensive one out of all the guys we've talked about so far, $3.33 million. So obviously you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck if you target a guy like Khudobin or a guy like Talbot or whatever instead of a Thomas Greiss. And then the last name over here on this article is Jacob Markstrom, a .275 goals against average, a .918 save percentage in 43 games, coming off of a $3.67 million contract. Now that's honestly something that I don't want to think about. Jacob Markstrom is much better than the numbers suggest. He is, in my opinion, one of the best goaltenders in the NHL because his ability to steal games and his ability to win games for his team is unparalleled. He's a legit elite goaltender in the NHL, in my opinion. And sure, the numbers may not indicate that, but Markstrom's a guy who has been hung out to dry time in and time out by a Vancouver Canucks team that is still growing, still maturing, and still finding ways to win. Markstrom is probably the only guy on this list who, in my opinion, is legit starter material. And if he enters the free agency market, then Detroit, if you want to go for it, do it. If you have the cap space, which you do, and you have the ability to use him in your lineup, which you do, then I say there's nothing to lose. It's just the fact that Seattle exists and the fact that Jacob Markstrom has said time in and time out that he wants to play on Vancouver and that he doesn't have anything else on his mind. It does kind of throw a wrench in that whole plan. But thinking about any of these goaltenders suiting up for the Detroit Red Wings in the near future does sound enticing, because Jimmy Howard is not the same Jimmy Howard that was, I don't know, winning games in 2010, winning games in 2009. Jimmy Howard has kind of fallen off a cliff. He is really old, and now he's in a position where he is most likely not going to get re-signed. Bernier has been okay, but you need that goaltending depth if you want to remain competitive, and if you actually want to build upon the young guys that you have in your team. So I'll open the floor to you in the comment section below. What about these guys intrigues you the most? Is it Jaroslav Halak and his veteran presence that thrived in Boston behind Tuukka Rask that seems the most appealing? What about Thomas Greiss and his long-term track record in the NHL, especially with the New York Islanders over there? Does Anton Khudobin's stellar play with the Dallas Stars this past season, splitting up the load with a Ben Bishop, intrigue you as well? What about Cam Talbot and his former extraordinarily high highs, let's just say? Because if you remember back when Talbot was with the Oilers and the Oilers made the playoffs, boy oh boy was Cam Talbot a great goalie back then. That was a few years removed though, so his glory days could potentially be in jeopardy. Some may even argue that they are gone completely, but is the potential for success that does exist within a player like Talbot something that you go after? But if you want to talk about success, hey, does Jacob Markstrom intrigue you too? For me, I don't want to see this guy leave Vancouver. He was crazy good. He's stolen us a few games here and there, and this team is gonna kind of fall apart if we try to roll with Thatcher Demko as our #1 starter immediately into next season. I love Thatcher Demko. He is going to be great in this league, but in my opinion, it's not his time yet. Jacob Markstrom started to break out as a true NHL star a year ago, and he was 29. He's 30 now. So it takes time for goalies to become great, and if you're looking at the Red Wings prospect system, they do have some very good goaltending prospects, but a lot of these guys, ECHL time, AHL time, NCAA time, it's not in the immediate foreseeable future for next season to actually become NHL talents. So that's where the Red Wings have to open up the floor to next season and take a look at what's in front of them. Unless the Red Wings just decide, no, we like Jimmy Howard and we're going to bring him back for another year. In that case, I have no idea what it is the Red Wings want to do, because in my opinion, you're not going to win games with Jimmy Howard, man. It's just not going to happen. If you want to bring in Alexis Lafreniere and get this team competitive immediately, you set your team up for success from the get-go, and Jimmy Howard just isn't going to do that anymore. And believe me, I recognize the good things that Howard has done for this city in the past however many years he has been here. He's been here for a really long time, but he plays 27 games and he has a 4.20 goals against average. Are you kidding me? You can't be allowing an average of 4 goals a game. man, if they sign him to a small contract, then maybe things can be changed, but I don't know. Comment down below what you think about the Red Wings goaltending situation. I hope you enjoyed this video. So that's Jaroslav 99, and bye.